So let's talk a little bit about this week's programming assignment, and I'm going to give you a few tips and tricks to get you started and make sure that you are confident in what you're doing. So here's our assignment, right? And we can find it either by clicking on assignments or by finding this week's module in the modules tab. And when we get to it, we are going to click on this link that says download the Tic-Tac-Toe starter code. When we do that, we're going to get this code right here. Okay, so looking at our assignment and what we are supposed to do, I'm going to keep it right here so that we can see it as we're coding. All right, so let's look at this file that we've been given. We have a couple of things in it. So you'll notice that you already have the HTML, right? And we've given you a head, and what we're doing is we are starting to work on a tic-tac-toe game. So our goals for this week are just to get it set up. We're going to continue to build this out throughout the semester. So within our HTML, we have a form, and all a form is, so I'll go ahead and show you. So we'll save it, and then we are going to do a browser preview, and we do that browser preview, and our form is just going to give us these three 3x3 grid. And so a form is just something that you can type into, right? So I can type anything in here. But for our tic-tac-toe game, we only really want to type X's and O's, okay? All right, so the first thing it tells us to do is add the script tags. So we are going to do that underneath our form. So number one, make sure that you are not adding your script tags within the form. You want them to be separate, but still in the body. Okay, so we've got our script tags, and then we're going to go ahead and you could create the 9 variables, but I think what a lot of people need help with is figuring out how to add a button. So there was a short video on how to do this, but in case you missed it, we are going to put it within our HTML under the form. And a button is just like any other HTML element, right? So a paragraph is an HTML element, a button is an HTML element. Just like our link tag, when we create this button, whatever we put in between the open and close tags is going to be what shows up on the button. So we're going to put click me, okay, and save our code, and now we've got this cool button. Right now it doesn't do anything because we haven't given it anything to do within the script tag. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we are going to add something to the button, and we're going to say on click, and we're going to say store game. Okay, so store game is a function, and we are going to define that function, okay? And so what we're telling the button to do is, hey, whenever you're clicked, so on click, run the function store game. So we talked about this a little bit with when we introduced functions in class, right? So it's like Simon Says, right? Our program is not going to run the function store game unless we've clicked the button, okay? All right, so save it. Oops, not save as. Save it. And now we need to write that function. So we are going to write within our script tags, function, store game, and some curly braces. All right, so just so you can see how this works a little bit, all we're going to do within this function right now is we're going to go ahead and add an alert, okay? And in that alert, we're going to write, this works. All right. So if we've done this correctly, when we click this button, we're going to pop up an alert that says this works. So make sure you save, and then click me, and it works. All right, so we're going to go ahead and turn off this alert for now by using a comment. And eventually, that alert is going to show the value of the variable that represents the center square, which is the requirement for this assignment. But for right now, we're just going to turn it off. Okay. All right, so we have our function set up. We know that it works when we click that button. And so our next job is going to be to create 9 variables. Now, you can name these variables anything you want, but as a suggestion, I would suggest naming them something that makes sense. So I am going to name it var up left, and that will be this square. And I'm going to say document dot get element by ID. And then we're going to go ahead and scroll up, right, to our form. And when we do this, we have our input fields. Okay, each of these corresponds to one of the squares down here, and they each have an ID. So upper left is S1 or square 1. Okay. So we're going to go down here, and in our get element by ID, we're going to put S1. And then the last thing that we need to do is we need to add a dot value. Okay, so what this is saying is, hey, document, go find the element S1, so by ID, and give us whatever value has been entered into it. Okay. So right now, it doesn't have a value, right? There's nothing there. But if I put an X, it's going to give us a value of X. It'll store an X within up left. Okay. So in order to finish this project, you are going to need to create a variable for every one of the squares. And this is going to set us up for the future when we use tic-tac-toe as a real game. And then we can compare to see, okay, if all of these are X's, then the X has 1. All right. So all you're doing right now is setting it up to store all of the variables. So you do need 9 variables. And then at the end, right, we want it to print out the value of the middle square. So just for now, because all we've defined is up left, we're going to write the value of the upper left, or the player inside the upper left square is, and then we're going to add or concatenate, right? Talking about string concatenation, up left. All right, so if we did this correctly, let's save it. When I click this button, it's going to pop up an alert that says the player inside the upper left square is X. And it does. And just to check for fun, let's go ahead and put nothing in there. And it's blank. And then we'll put O. And there it is. Okay, so to finish this project, in order to finish it and get full credit, you are going to create 9 more variables, right, if you've been following along, for each of the squares. And you are going to change this alert so that instead of it being the upper left square, it's going to give us the value of the center square. Okay, I hope this was helpful. And if you have more questions, be sure to reach out on Piazza or via email.